for joining. I'm Chris Geiger. Welcome to No Movies in Hell.
I'm LaClaw Scott, and today we are reviewing Lost Boys.
Classic vampire camp.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. I just remember seeing this movie as a kid, and I would every couple years would just re-up and see this film, but I haven't seen it in the theater. I know that you recently saw this movie in the theater.
Yes, Fathom Events at AMC was doing a Halloween series. They did The Lost Boys and also Bram Stoker's Dracula this past weekend. It was great. I had seen it many times before on TV with commercial breaks. I had also rented it, back in the day when you would go to your local
Blockbuster?
store. Not even Blockbuster. I think it was called Alexandria Video.
Oh wow, your local, yeah.
Local video store. You would rent videos back then. And back rewound the next day. Or 2 days later, I can't remember. So Lost Boys, classic Halloween vampire. It maybe was my first vampire movie.
I think same for me. Yeah, so it's like that was your first gorgeous skater punk Kiefer Sutherland.
First Kiefer Sutherland exposure, that's for sure. Jamie Gertz, she was beautiful. I watched it in the theater, and it occurs to me now when I'm looking at them, they're all so young looking. I remembered that they were young, but just seeing them again, it's like, because I probably haven't seen it in years.
Yeah.
But they are so young looking. And Jamie Gertz, I remember her being the same sort of age as everybody else in that movie, but she actually looks like she's a little bit older than they are, which it didn't occur to me when I was watching it at the time that she might have been. Although they don't really give the ages of any of them, right?
It's like pseudo, they're teenagers, but really what 16 or 17-year-old looks like that, right?
Right. And also they could be 100 years old.
Yes.
But 16 in a
16.
Right.
Because they're vampires.
Right. Except for Laddie, the little boy.
Yes.
Yes. Which seemed odd, like an odd choice. But I was thinking about it later, and the movie, the way it ends, the head vampire Max says, "Oh, my boys have been bad. I thought I would get to you through your sons. So if I could hurt your sons, then you would come over to be like the den mother." And it's interesting because looking back on that now, Jamie Gertz is the only female in their group, and she's only halfway there. Like she and Laddie are only halfway there. So it almost seems like maybe they were trying to recruit Jamie Gertz by getting Laddie.
Yeah.
In. And I was like, oh, is Laddie her son?
Yeah.
So that made me think, oh, maybe she is older, like in the storyline, but that's not really ever explained. Interesting watching things that you've watched before, but from a new perspective.
Very much so, especially with that film. I feel like it's so weird. It's like Southern California, kind of. I think it's like Santa Clara. And then it's like very beach. So many things happen at the beach, but like vampires. And I guess it kind of makes sense of like people go missing and there's boardwalk. And then they just cause like terror.
Yeah, I remembered it as being like this campy, fun vampire movie, but there are some really intense vampire attack scenes when they're at the bonfire and they attack that group, and when they get the security guard out in the parking lot when he's by himself.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't really remember it as being scary, but there are some scenes that would be scary. And maybe that was because seeing it in the theater this time, they were just much more intense than when you're at home on your little 13-inch TV.
And you're interrupted by commercial breaks.
Right. It was good to see the Coreys.
Yes.
I forgot about the grandfather being a taxidermist.
Yes.
But that was fun. It was great to revisit, and it makes me want to revisit more old movies.
Yeah, that's a very good nostalgic one.
Yeah. Let's go to our slides.
Yeah.
So based on our ranking system, it got really high marks. And I think because of the nostalgia factor, because it was the first time I saw Kiefer. It was the first time I saw a vampire movie. It was the first time I saw kind of like that sort of aesthetic, really. Like
Hmm.
she's wearing the bohemian sort of clothes, like they're all kind of punk motorcycles slash
Vampire.
yeah, it's hard to describe what that look is before you've ever seen it, but after you've seen it, you see it in so many other movies. Like I do
Oh
think
yes, yeah.
after Lost Boys, there was a whole set of movies that came out following the genre.
Yep. Yeah. And even with the Coreys too, them being kind of like, one is kind of like a punk, but the other is kind of like nerdy and like, very strategic. And you see that, yeah, you see those tropes all throughout like these teen movies in the 80s.
Yeah, yeah. Setting the bar for those things. Acting, it's a campy movie. The acting wasn't that great. Cinematography, I thought was good for what it was. It definitely watching in the theater made me appreciate that more.
Mm,
But still, it was a relatively low budget movie, I think. Or at least
yeah.
compared to what we're used to now.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. I don't even think that it was like successful. I think it's like campy and cultish. Like people come back to it every once in a while. It gets brought up in popular culture lexicon, whether it's like Alex Winter saying something about it, or I don't know, Kiefer Sutherland. I feel like Kiefer Sutherland doesn't say anything about it, or the saxophone player that is in the beach scene recently, Reservation Dogs, a show on FX.
mm.
Um, he makes a cameo
Oh,
in the
wow.
last episode of the second season. So, I feel like it comes around over and over again, even memed too, like around, Halloween. It's the saxophone player from the Lost Boys. And
Nice.
people have their opinions. I think that it's good. I mean, yes, I feel like my ratings are soft here. However, I feel like it's still a very nostalgic, very good film that I would have on Sunday afternoon, background uh noise while I'm working on stuff. And
Definitely.
occasionally we'll peek up at like the very intriguing moments.
Yeah, for sure. Costumes I thought weren't amazing if you look at them now, but back then
Yeah.
they definitely were like they had a certain look that they created and it went on to spawn other things. So I think from an influential standpoint, for sure it gets a 3.
Yes.
Hair and makeup gets a 3. I noticed in this, usually vampires have their canines extended
Hmm.
in movies. They actually had the tooth inside, just outside of I don't know what it's called. Not your front, it's not your two front teeth, but it's the ones right next to it. So it's
Oh, interesting.
yeah, which makes so much sense because it's so much more visible.
Hmm.
The canines are just sort of too far out, unless you're
Yeah.
really exaggerating like your speech for your lips to like pull back enough. I think it was really innovative for this makeup person to have brought their teeth, their extended fangs forward into that next set of teeth.
Mhm.
And then when I was watching Bram Stoker's Dracula, actually some of the vampires in that had their canines extended, but some of them actually had that second tooth as well.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if there's, history of, yeah, if it's canine versus closer versus the teeth that are a mechanism of drawing blood, or is it just the piercing and then I have no idea. There's a lot of intricate things. I should ask a vampire. Maybe I'll interview one. Who knows?
If you do, let me know.
Okay.
I'll be there to record it. Jewelry, I gave a 3 because the jewelry is actually part of the story. Like
Hmm.
Corey Haim says, "Hey, was it Corey? Yeah, Corey Haim says, why do you have your ear pierced, Michael? That's not you." Which is funny because he actually Corey has his ear pierced.
Oh, that's
Uh,
funny. And they probably like showed it prominently in the theater.
well, it's real small. It's like a tiny stud.
Oh,
So I
okay.
don't think they wanted it to be overly prominent, but it was
Yeah.
funny that he's making fun of Michael's piercing. So you see that about plus like the costume has a lot of like jewelry associated with it. There's that scene where they're at the concert at the beach and the guy's wearing like this
Oh
chain.
yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
Production quality was good, I thought, for setting a look and feel, probably not on a tremendously huge budget. It's hard to place how much money they might have had. There were decently sized names associated with this based like from a producer director standpoint.
Oh yeah, because it's Joel Schumacher. But I mean, he's done things for very limited budget too. So yeah, I don't know if they like lost money or made money off of this film.
I have to believe over time they made money.
Oh yes, definitely. But like when it came out, yeah, I don't know because I don't know if where it was on that pendulum of the Corey hype.
Right.
If it was in the very beginning or in the middle or the very end.
Right. I don't remember that either. Rater's Choice, I gave it a 3 just because of the nostalgia part of it. I probably would have given it a Rater's Choice of 3 back then, though, too. Story I thought was fun. Gave it a 3. Soundtrack 3. I really like the soundtrack of this.
Yes.
And special effects, too.
Yeah, I felt like they were just practical effects, which were fine.
Yeah.
It made the good. Yeah, I think it was overall. I do like this film. I just maybe I hadn't seen it recently, and then with some of the other horror films that I've been watching, I was like, this is good. This is good.
Yeah.
It's like a solid B for me.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have anything to plug in this episode?
Nothing I can think of. Yeah, I think we're good to go at this time. How about you, Chris?
Nothing movie related, although I do want to give a shout out to the Veterans Yoga Project because they're starting their annual Veterans Gratitude Week campaign, which happens around this time every year. So they teach free yoga classes to veterans and the families of veterans. And so during Veterans Gratitude Week, they have free classes that are available for anyone, but request donations. So if you sort of a pay what you can scenario, and then all of that money goes to support the organization. So if you like yoga and you want to take a class, try to find a yoga class being taught in your area by a Veterans Yoga Project instructor.
Sweet. And there will be a link in the video. Yes.
In the description below.
Yay. Okay, good.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone.
Thanks.